Hi, my name is Brandon Scarin. I don't know if I did this right, but it's summer and I'm working on this class, so this is probably as good as I'm going to get. So originally I said I was going to work on my Civil War test, and I changed my mind and I worked on my World War One test. So as we were analyzing these, one thing that I mentioned is that we could have increased the DOK level some. I know, but that wasn't like it was either make a rubric or something else, but that's what I really wanted to focus on, is to make my quizzes better by increasing the DOK level. So I hope that's okay, because that in my district, that's one of our focuses. So rather than making a test bank, I thought this would actually be more beneficial. And it is something that we talked about in this course in the module earlier. So this is the test. And so originally you had questions like this that I'm showing you, which obviously are just DOK, the bottom level, but it's things kids need to know. And so I think sometimes that lower DOK levels get a bad rap, but sometimes it's just plain facts that students need to know, right? And so, as we would go through World War One, we have different questions. This one is about German U-boats, which they have to know something about warfare. And so even though it seems like a simple multiple choice question, it's really not. They have to use their skills, things that they've watched, things that we've discussed in class, things that they've researched in class, to understand the threat of the German U-boats, and then how the United States was able to overcome that threat, right? And so I think sometimes whenever people analyze tests and they look at DOK levels, they're looking at it like, oh, it's multiple choice, it must be lower level. But in this fact, it's not. But what I went ahead and did too was, and I saw someone mention that teachers like it because they don't have to grade, which is absolutely right. I'm not going to negate that. I had last year 175 students that I saw on a daily basis. And so with everything going on with COVID, you're absolutely right. I didn't put a lot of questions that I had to self-grade. I literally did not have the time. If I were to take the time, it would be to sacrifice time for my family, other things in my life. And so you're absolutely right. Teachers don't always do that. But I went back in and added a couple of questions, seeing that this year hopefully will be a little more manageable, to try to get that. And I should preface by saying that when I took over this class last year, there was nothing. We could not use textbooks at all because of COVID. There were no pre-planned lessons. There were no PowerPoint lecture notes. Like, I literally walked in and they're like, well, here's a textbook, but you can't use the textbook. And so last year, yes, was a crazy year. Anyway, so back to this. So what I want to do is, and also my students like visuals, all right? And so I wanted to incorporate some of the posters and things like that that we had looked at during World War One. So obviously this is asking them to compare and contrast. So they're having to do slightly higher order thinking, and then write a written response. So it's not just multiple choice. And so you can see, actually, if you scroll, I know it's hard on the video, but this is obviously what they presented to them about joining the war, and then, the realities of war, and asking the kids to discuss what they've seen, they've read, they've researched, and then obviously, to start off, I did say 5 sentences in length, which I know is not extremely a large amount, but for 14-year-olds, sometimes 5 sentences is a great deal if they're putting in the content that I need them to, right? And then this one, I did decide to do it as right now as an extra credit type question, because it's a little higher. It's a very higher order, right? So what was the original purpose of that? And then they had to take that purpose and then they had to decide if those laws in their mind were a good idea, right? Why or why not? And I did give them some think abouts, like, hey, remember when we talked about this, we discussed these things, or things that you may have seen or heard, or things that you may know of, to possibly spur them on, because once again, we're talking about 14-year-olds. And so this would be maybe an optional extra credit. I can always take it and turn it into a real question. So once again, I did not make a rubric or something like that, but I did attempt to increase the rigor of my assessments from last year, which is something I do want to do this year, now that hopefully things will be better and we have a better grasp on the content.